Are you a manager who is eager to change the trajectory of your career? I have spent the last 23 years as a Fortune 50 leader learning from other industry leaders how to break free from limiting beliefs and habits. On the Might in Motion podcast, we focus on the 4 M's: motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. We bring you leaders from Fortune companies, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Their stories of living their own might in motion will inspire you to create your own action plan and achieve your goals. Welcome to Might in Motion. Today's episode of Might in Motion is brought to you by Pantheon FM, Fortunes Magnified. Pantheon FM is changing the world through entrepreneurship. In this community, you will find everything you need to create, amplify, and monetize your world-changing business. Join us at pantheon.community/register/LAUA. Today, I am thrilled to bring to you Diane Wyzga. From U.S. Navy nurse to lawyer, from speaker to litigation consultant, from seasoned backpacking adventurer to storyteller. It's all about falling down 7 and getting up 8. For 30 years, Diane has helped professionals take their story from a message only they could hear to publishing world, the courtroom, hospitals, board meetings, the airwaves, and more. Today, she helps women become successful origin story creators, finding the words they didn't know they had to connect with, engage, and enliven their audience to action while transforming the lives of those they serve. When a person or opportunity beckons and you summon the courage to say yes, that's the place where the story changes. Diane, welcome to Might in Motion.
Oh, thank you so much. I am delighted to join you from Washington to Georgia.
I
And
know
that
we
was
were
just a beautiful, yeah. And that was just a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for the light and life you put into it.
This is really fun. I've been thinking about this interview for a few weeks. And we met probably about a month,
Yeah.
month and a half ago, and
Mhm.
I love your passion around women and leadership and all that you do to help women find their voices. We were talking in the green room
We were.
about a new book that you've been reading called the Sisterhood book about women in the CIA. Tell me a little bit more on why that's so inspirational to you.
Oh, it's a phenomenal book. I think Lucy Motts, I think is the name. I should pull it up. I'll pull it up for you for the episode notes. But it's called The Sisterhood, and it is it's the early days of the CIA. There was actually an organization that preceded the CIA, and our chef, Julia Child, was in it. There's actually a photograph in the book of her. Who knew?
Wow.
But the story is all about how women are so smart and articulate and detail oriented and analytical, and yet they are underestimated. And the quote that I resonated with was the idea that if you are underestimated and you're a spy on the street, that's probably not a bad thing because you're kind of invisible. But
Right.
if you are underestimated and you're in an organization like the CIA, like a corporation, like anything, not only is that underestimation diminishing you personally, but it diminishes the circle of people all around you. And so I look at that book and I think, my goodness, these are really smart, brilliant, intelligent, brave, bold women. And yet they're still fighting against this idea that we can't, we
Mm.
can't, we can't do it all. And so that is the book that's got me, going right now.
What do you think as a female leader, right? And how can I or people I know help break down that misconception or lend a hand, reach out and help serve other women that are coming up within organizations so that hopefully over a period of time we can lessen that, right? So what happened pre CIA, it would be great current state that it's less this now in today's times than it was back then. And then as I look ahead to 20 years from now, when my kids are, potentially in a corporate space or a military space or whatever it is, or an entrepreneur, or whatever, a lawyer, whatever, what are things that maybe we can do as leaders, male or female leaders, to help reduce that?
That's a great question. I think it starts all the way back in grammar school. So when teachers choose boys for math and science questions and they overlook the girls are just as smart in math and science as the boys are. So beginning, regardless of where we are, so you've got a community, you've got schools, you've got churches, and doing what you can to uplift that little girl. And whether it is as a PTA member talking to teachers or hearing what your children are saying when they come back from school, and reminding the little girls in the beginning, you are smart. You've got it all. You're really brilliant. And let me see what I can do to help you keeping that voice going. As we're getting older, it's no different. To create safe spaces where women can share their stories, I think is paramount. So whether we have mastermind groups or whether we have Zoom meetings or whether in a corporation we have an opportunity for women to get together and share their personal and professional stories, I think is a really great opportunity for several reasons. You're developing your confidence by speaking your story out loud. And when I say story, let's just confine it right now to the origin story. How did you get from there to here? So, for example, Mariana, if I were to ask you, so how did you get from not being a podcaster to being a podcaster? And what was it that drew you to podcasting? What is it that you want to accomplish? What is it that you want to achieve? And so, well, if you want to answer that question, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, so my origin story has morphed. My original one was I wanted to be on stage to speak, and I was hopeful that a male mentor was going to bring me on stage. And when I got home from an event, I said, "Why am I waiting on him? I'm going to create my own stage." And that was my initial. And now it's morphed into legacy building. And I love the idea, the thought of not only am I building a legacy on trying to help other leaders be able to hear from really cool, diverse people like yourself and get their own nuggets to go take into their career, but also that my two girls, when I'm long gone, they can still listen to mom.
Yep.
And be able to hear conversations that she had. So it's this interesting arc of wanting to build others, but also wanting to build up my kids.
Absolutely. So did you hear that story right there? It's got passion, it's got drama, it has mission, it has intention. And my guess would be that somewhere in your long ago, when you were a wee little one, some of that was already there. And that's what has been tracking underneath your life like a deep river, into your life. And you're dipping into that river now with this work that you're doing. The other thing I heard too are the values that were important to you. So you mentioned the word like legacy, your children, making the world a better place for your children, leaving something behind for them, help, self-motivation. I was hoping for a male mentor to come and put me on stage. Why wait for him? I'm going to do this myself. And the reason that I point that out is because when we are looking at at discovering and uncovering our origin story, these themes that started when we were little, and they're there, these values that have always been with us, they're there. Those inform the story of who we are. And Simon Sinek's very famous for saying, it's your why. It's your why. Well, yes, that's important and that's true. But your who precedes your why. Once you know who you are, then what your why is kind of falls into place. And if you're not comfortable in where you are, you're living in a life that isn't working for you. It's like you're walking around in somebody else's underwear. It's probably because that it's probably because there is a disconnect between your who and your why. And so looking at your origin story, going back to do the archaeological dig, looking at the past civilization of your life helps to inform your who. And then that who says, oh, wait a minute, I'm in a good why, or I need to change my why.
Yeah, I love that. That is so insightful because, I love the whole 5 whys. Well, why again, right? But when you tie it to a who, it becomes so much more passionate. And when you have a passion about what you're doing or where you're going, you're more likely to succeed.
Well, you are. You are, because now something feels right to you.
Yeah.
And one of the powers of a story is, yes, it's the way the listener feels, but the way a story works is by capitalizing on the imagination of the listener. And so when they're listening to a story, so when I was listening to you talk about wanting to be on stage, legacy, podcasting, in my mind, I'm also paying attention to, yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
the feelings, the sensations, bodily sensations, the memories that your story is bringing up in me is what makes your story powerful. Now there is an integration between the two of us. And yes, I feel like simpatico with you, but it's more than that. It's because you have activated my imagination, feelings,
Mm.
memories, sensations. And now I can go, oh yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I get her.
Yeah. I this really resonates on so many levels. So one could say, I'm in a corporate space. Oh, that doesn't apply to me because I don't have a podcast. And I would argue, actually, if you're going to pitch something, you're going to go pitch an idea, a solution to a problem. Being able to take somebody on a journey of that creates an image in their mind, they're going to be more likely to remember what the problem was and how you were planning on solving it, because they've got something that's connecting to them emotionally that they're able to visualize. Do you find that that's
Exactly.
true?
Exactly. No, that it's hugely true. If that isn't even if that's even a way to describe something, it's it's right on point. It's right on point. And you're right. People may not be in our shoes. They might not be in your shoes. They might not have children, whatever. But the overarching universal truths of story always apply. And what I mean about the universal truth, it's truths with a capital T that are
Mm-hmm.
understood around the world, no matter where we are. People understand fairness, they understand discrimination, they understand love, they understand hate, they understand fill in the blank. These are the truths that unite us. And so I could say to people, yeah, I've got a background as an incest survivor. I've got a husband who left after an affair and went on to another wife. And people listening to my story might go, whoa, that hasn't happened to me. But when I tell the story, there are themes, universal truths of loss and betrayal and abandonment and overcoming challenges, fall down 7, get up 8. And it's
Mm-hmm.
that the people, that women listeners can connect to. Oh, now I get that. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. They don't have to stand in our shoes per se with the experience, but the overarching universal truths are there.
And these are truths you can see in any really good movie that has stood the test of time, right? There's always the
Oh,
heroes, you know?
oh yeah. Yeah, you've got it in books, you've got it in movies, you've got it in music. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
listen to some of the classics that we keep singing because it's boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy finds girl. Yay, everything's great again.
Right.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Now, the other thing we were talking about in the green room before we started recording was you mentioned in defense of witches, and that women are kind of still on trial. And that was like,
Oh,
whoa.
there she goes. Okay, I'm game.
Unpack that, because we didn't get to
Put
unpack
me
it
in,
fully
coach.
earlier.
Yes, it's a wonderful book that I just picked up at the library. It's called In Defense of Witches. And I think the last name of the author is Cholet. I think it's French, and I can give it to you for the
Oh, okay.
episode notes. But she's a feminist author. And as she began to look at the research of getting rid of witches and women that goes back to the 14th century, she tracked it all the way to the present day and said, yeah, there are still witch hunts going on in ways where women's voices are pushed down, oppressed, ignored, not listened to. The history of tracking down witches is really fascinating because at that time it was saying to women, whether you were single, didn't have children, like to be in nature alone, there were various reasons why you didn't fit in. You didn't fit in. And there was a great fear of who a woman was. So it was easier to label someone and saying that you're a witch, you're evil, and in order to spare us and society, we have to get rid of you. And they did in tens of thousands of numbers of women that were burned at the stake. They got rid of grandmothers and mothers and daughters. And so there was nothing necessarily left of the women in a particular family. While we don't have the witch drownings and the burning at the stake that we did before, there's an argument to be made that women are not encouraged to speak up, to share their ideas, to be understood as having something to offer. And regardless of whether it's a corporate setting, some organization, a community, there is a great need for women to recognize I was given a voice. I have a voice, and I want to use that voice. And I want to use that voice to be seen and heard and understood and listened to. And once I do that, then I'm in a position to see and hear and understand and listen to others.
Yeah.
So by putting ourselves forward, which sounds selfish because we're always supposed to be selfless, by putting ourselves forward and recognizing, gosh darn it, you got something to say.
Right.
It develops your confidence in your communication. And then you
I
can
love
help lift somebody else. And the last person out of the building shuts off the light.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you help people? Now, you kind of walk through helping me with an origin story for just the podcast, but how do you work with others on helping them figure out their voice? Helping people through that journey.
It's a journey and it's a lot of fun. And I'm different in a couple of ways. I start out with the belief that you know exactly the story that you want to tell. The only thing that you need is help listening it out, helping you find the words you didn't know you had. And that's key because I'm not going to impose my words, my story, my voice on you. It starts with you know what it is. And no matter how long it's going to take, we'll get to it. And so there's a lot of one-on-one work that I do. The other thing that sets me apart is that I believe you can't teach someone how to tell a story. We can tell them that we can teach mechanics, we can teach platform skills back there on the stage. But what we can do is teach a woman how to teach herself. And once you do that, then it's like a miracle. It is. It's one of those, my clients will say, oh my God, look what I did. Oh my God, look what I did. I didn't know I could do that. And so my process is one-on-one. I offer a 45-minute, no sales, no obligation discovery chat. And that way we have an opportunity for me to say, what's on your mind? What do you think I can do? And how can I help? And then let's see what unfolds in that space of time and whether I can be of use to you and whether we're a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I've got going on are a couple of online courses that are in progress. And the third thing that I have, and I wasn't putting a lot of emphasis on this, but I'd like to, because when we're talking about women's voices, we're also talking about how to improve your communication confidence. And that could be something as simple as if you stumble over your words in a meeting or a presentation. Okay, here's a tip. This is what you can do for that. If you over explain because you're unsure whether people in the audience, especially online, are listening to you. So, what I looked at was my podcast. It's almost 4 years long, but I have over 1,000 daily episodes there. And what I created when I made the pivot from interviewing guests as a result of COVID, because we weren't driving around anymore, was to create daily 60 seconds. So each episode is typically between 60 and 180 seconds. And in mere minutes, I share a story, a message, and a call to action. And I like to point people to that to say, you can do the same thing, because brevity really matters because our attention spans are short. And when we get practice in presenting our information in a clear, concise, and cogent manner, once again, there is an opportunity to be seen, heard, understood, and listened to, and you develop your communication confidence. So that's a
That's it.
lot. I threw it at
Yeah.
the wall. Did that answer the question that you asked me?
Yeah, and what I love is that, I mean, that's anybody. Anybody can learn how to do better communication,
Yeah.
presentation skills.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just applicable in your whole life, regardless of if you're in a corporate space or even if you're a stay-at-home mom, but now you're over the PTA, right?
That's
And
right.
there are so many people that I'll have, my whole life. Oh, I'm afraid to be on stage. I'm afraid to speak in front of people. That's my worst fear. I'd rather move, and it's kind of like, just it's practice. It's a muscle. It's getting up and actually doing
It's
is
doing
the
it.
key. Yeah.
It's doing it. And when I was teaching story in university, and then we created a storytelling troupe from that and did performances, what I learned is that all people need is that opportunity to do it and be successful. Because you're right, speaking in public is the number one fear. Snakes is number two.
Right.
but, but that speaking in public thing, but to do it and to find out that you're successful at it, even if you stumble a little bit, all of my clients stand and deliver, all of them. You're not going
Yeah.
to write down your stuff and hope that sending in a written assignment is going to make it. No, because our spoken word, as you know, is different than our written word. So yeah,
Yes.
we
That is
write our
awesome.
story. Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. I was on the road for about 2.5 hours earlier today, and so I listened to a ton of different podcasts. And one of them, when this one gentleman said he was getting ready to go up, it was going to be his first keynote. He was terrified, and he said the thing I told myself standing backstage was, instead of, hey, am I going to make a mistake? It was, I can't wait until I do this a second time.
There
Because
you
once he's like,
go.
once I do it first, I'll have mistakes I can learn from. I can go and tweak. I can make edits. So to have that forward-looking mindset of the second time is going to be even better, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, whatever it is. I think that was a really cool thought process, and I love how you're like, you can't write this one in. You're going to have to actually do it, because then you get the first one done. You've ripped the Band-Aid off. That means the
That's
second one
right.
should be a little bit easier.
That's right. And it goes right to your M's about motivation and momentum. It's like I'm motivated to do this because I can't wait to get to number 2, and I've got the momentum to do it. I'm on my way. I've got this
Right.
running start, and there I go. So yes, 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 yes. Your might in motion the minute you take that first step.
Right. It's really important. So now, do you work with people who are maybe trying to develop a keynote speech, or what's kind of a typical client?
It's all across the board, and I will tell you that oftentimes what I get is a client who comes in, say, with a keynote, or I've got a presentation to make it work, or I'm trying to get the about page ready, or I'm launching a business and I don't know how to do that. So they come in under that umbrella, so to speak, and that
Mm-hmm.
work will get done. And in conjunction with that, invariably, we keep going back to the origin story because, as we said earlier, one feeds the other. And so to me, communication is communication is communication, regardless of how we move toward it. So those are in fact, in my website, those are some of the scenarios that I pose to people. If you're trying to do an about page or you're launching a business, the the origin story part of it really comes close to being your personal brand. It's not your professional brand per se, but your personal brand informs your professional brand. And so once you have a lock on that, then all of it becomes clear. So, for example, look at you. Look at this might in motion. There's got to be some story underneath there. You just didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to call myself this. Do you want to give us a few?
No, that's a great, great question. And I don't even know if I can even remember how I came up with the name, except that I really loved alliteration. It's like, ooh, let's just
It's
throw a whole bunch
great.
of M's. And, for me, that might just, it just, there's so much strength in the word might. It's more than just being strong. Somebody can be mighty and be quiet. Somebody can be
Yes.
mighty and they move big boulders, right? And it's
Yeah.
just this context, right? And to your point, motion, body in motion stays in motion, right? That tunes into my engineering background of, I want to stay in movement. I don't want to be static, and I don't want other people to be static. I want them to find their own inspiration so that they too can figure out, okay, what's the next step? How do I move one step further in either my career or my personal goals or my dreams or my family life or whatever? So I don't even remember how I came up with the name. It just kind of happened. And I had that vision of like, I want this arrow and I want the arrow to connect the two and just really show that there is that upward kind of mobility that you can have in any aspect of your life. You just have to take that first step.
Your logo is very clear that way, and your explanation of your story has a lot of delight in it and a lot of energy around it. And whether you woke up in the middle of the night and said, this is what it's going to be, or it worked out some other way, I think what you're also speaking to is this subconscious imagination layer of our humanity that we have going on that is informing us. Oftentimes we write something down, write a couple of things, and then in the shower, it's always the shower, oh, aha, I got this idea in the shower.
It's the one
But
place we don't
really,
have our phone.
yeah, but that's how it works. And just to hear you say in the few sentences, this is what I created. And I know if we talked to you more, you said you offered it. My engineering background was part of this. There's a sense of might, and you're using your body to express to us what might is like and motion is like. And so you're going back to that, that those elements of story. That story is sensation, bodily sensations, as well as imagination and memories and feelings. So you're putting that all together as you're letting us know, yeah, this is what I created and this is how. Brilliant.
That's awesome. Now, Diane, I'm going to throw up on the screen and we'll put it all in the show notes. But baby, what's one or two ways that people could connect with you? And just and remind everybody too about your podcast, because I love that it's really short. So that takes away any excuse.
Yes.
It's not 2.5, 5 hours long, whatever the case may be. So
no, the easiest place to go is quartermoonstoryarts.net. It is a beautiful website, but it's also value packed. So there's audios and things to listen to. There's a every now and again news audio letter to sign up for with a bonus. So that's the overarching me. And there you'll find the link that'll take you to the discovery chat. It's 45 minutes, which is substantial, but it's free and there's no obligation. And it gives us a good time to sit down and talk with one another about what's going on. How do you think I can help? And then lastly, the podcast. It's called Stories from Women Who Walk because I like stories. I'm a woman and I walk. But the and underneath that is the daily 60 seconds. And so you'll find that each day has a theme, whether it's motivation or wisdom. Every Friday, there's a story prompt. And there's over 1,000 episodes. So you can wander around and get lost in there. But it's a good way to learn about me, because as you said earlier, Mariana, you're living out loud in your podcast. And I find that with my episodes, I'm building my life out loud. And I'm doing that so that listeners, and I've got a global audience, will say, what? You too? I thought I was the only one.
Right.
No,
but we're not
you're
alone.
not.
We just need to talk to each other.
That's exactly it. That's all we have to do.
Yeah.
Talk and listen and share some potluck.
I love it. I love it. Now, everybody who listens, I don't always do a great job at the end of the episode of doing this, but I've got my pen and I always try to write down things that resonated with me while we were talking. And so some of the stuff that I wrote down was around the way stories work is tying it to a visual, and that helps create connections because now you're creating this image, which really allows others to almost see themselves within your own story, and that creates that memory. You mentioned that there are universal truths, right? So when your story is including those universal truths of, justice versus injustice, right, wrong, all that, those hardcore pillars, if you will, it really connects with others. And you can leverage that if you're doing a keynote or you're doing a presentation for the first time in school, or you're doing a presentation in corporate America. You can create that same kind of dynamic within your message and your story that you're telling.
Yep.
And then we also talked about there is a sense of being kind of underestimated around women because, I don't know the why, but we have these skills of, we're very detailed. We are analytical. We can connect the spaghetti of thoughts that many other people. I always think of this plate of spaghetti, and if you find the right one, you can pull the whole, one noodle out. And being able to figure out that end is something that I think women really know how to do, but can be underestimated. And when that happens, we're diminishing people around us. We're diminishing women around us. And if you are in a leadership position, there's an obligation to not do that. There's an obligation to say, how can I lean into this person's skill set, regardless if it's man or woman, because everybody brings in their own skill set. How can you lean into them and help them level up? And that each story has a history. You kind of went into my origin story a little bit with the podcast, and you talked about how there's a legacy aspect and a self-motivation aspect. So having the right people to ask you those questions can help you understand your own origin story, and you're that right person to ask those questions. So when you're in that curiosity space, you're a great person to go and work with. I love how you have the free 45-minute discussion, and we'll drop that in the show notes as well, so anybody can go and click and find out more. That practice is key. So when you're working with Diane, it's not just going to be you write in your essay and you send it in. No, you're going to have to speak it out loud, and that's going to allow you to start creating that momentum in your life. So this was really awesome, Diane. It's been great to share your message with this audience, because I think it really is going to resonate with a lot of people who maybe have that fear of getting up in front of others. But when you connect it in a way that's that fun story time that we all loved as a kid, right, you're going to be able to really share a message with others that maybe some people were afraid to do before.
Thank you so very much. It has been a delight. You could light up Atlanta. I mean, you really could. And when people talk about vibrational energy, because that's what we are, we're energy and we vibrate, we have frequencies, then you are vibrating on that really beautiful green might and motion energy. So, and I've never heard a reflection back at the end like this. So I think that is a very precious and important little tip that you're offering to others. Take a minute at the end and just write down what you learned. So thank you for this opportunity. I've just loved it.
Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.